Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the 4iSoft demo and presentation for Ventiv sales teams and account managers. We have some great information for you today, and we want to empower you and make it easier for you to make your numbers. So with that, let's get started. So this morning, I'd like to share with you basically our story, which would be our joint story, as well as the story that we are jointly going forward with to engage customers. As many of you may know, we have joint customers, and we also have customers that we have engaged independently. But from now on, as we are one team, we feel that we can be much more efficient working together. So those are the areas that we're going to hope to get through this morning and do it in an efficient manner. So who we are and why are we here? As many of you know, research shows that better information across combined businesses, especially after acquisitions, results in better sales. So we want to give you as much information about ourselves and what we offer that will allow you and your teams to go out and engage with your client base and with our joint client bases to increase our ability to sell. Having said that, and I won't read all the bullet points here, but there are a few things I want to highlight. 4iSoft was founded in 2008, and we are an insurance-centric services company, IT services company. We actually have been performing those types of services in the insurance space since 2005, but as a different entity. And as Carrie mentioned, now we are wholly owned by Ventiv Technology. So we're a wholly owned subsidiary of Ventiv Technology. There are many things that we think we bring to the table. We have product expertise and domain expertise across the board, and we have been successful delivering our services and solutions and have had very positive feedback from our customer base. So Ventiv and 4iSoft, why are we better together? Obviously, Ventiv has a substantial history that they bring to the table. 4iSoft has a legacy that we bring to the table from a delivery perspective. And we believe that combining these two things together will result in a more efficient and more effective organization. And how do we mean that? These are some areas that we think will improve because of the joining of the two companies. The bottom line is, as I mentioned earlier, the goal from our perspective is to improve and increase revenue and profitability across the board, both to internal clients and also to external clients. And we think that based upon our track record and based upon Ventiv's track record, we can do that, and we can do it very successfully. So who's our leadership team? Rich Kumar is someone that you've heard from already today and may have met in person at various times. He's the founder and CEO of the company. Nora is our VP of Customer Engagement. She is the one who gave the 4Audit demo, and I think many of you probably know her. She's also a very dynamic and an experienced person in the field and has worked with several different companies. Our VP of Operations is Sudhi, and our General Manager in India is Tarun. I'm sure that you will meet Sudhi soon enough if you haven't already. And Tarun, you'll probably engage with him at different points in time. So let's move on. How are we organized? So just to give you some understanding of what our team capabilities are and what our team organization is, that's what this slide is about. As you can see, we're heavily weighted towards delivery. We have many of our personnel that are experienced at 5+ years or 8+ years of specific experience within this industry. And also we have other senior resources that we tap into from the perspective of development and architecture. This is who we are from a layout perspective as far as our organization goes. So why is all this important, or what does it matter? We believe that what we bring to the table as a service organization is something that can give you the ability to accelerate your sales goals and also accelerate your ability to service and support the customers that you already have. All of the things that we've talked about thus far as 4iSoft is concerned, our domain experience, our technical experience, and the fact that we have a tremendous reputation in the marketplace, we believe is going to only support and enhance your ability to do sales. So let's talk about those upsell opportunities from a Ventiv perspective. The things that we've come up with, we really broke it down into 4 categories. Production, both from an IVOS and a risk counsel perspective. As you can see, conversions, reporting, analytics, etc. Development, which is something that we probably haven't done as much with Ventiv, but we have done with our other customers outside of Ventiv before the acquisition. Of course, ongoing support, an area where we are able to both support applications and databases for clients on a 24/7 basis. And then, of course, the product, which I won't spend too much time on because we just had the demo on that. But the product is 4Audit, it's a claims auditing tool. Now, another way to look at this is from the perspective of a salesperson. So where is the revenue maximized? So as you can tell, I'll give you a little background on this chart. Left to right is lower to higher revenue, and from down to up is non-recurring to recurring revenue. And that's one way to look at it. So from a product perspective, it's recurring revenue, and it is good revenue, and it's also a gateway to other opportunities. From a development perspective, it's not necessarily recurring revenue, but it's profitable and higher revenue from our perspective as far as how we deliver. And of course, production, we talked about, that can be somewhat recurring, and then the ongoing support, which is long-term, recurring, and also very profitable. Another way to break down our services and what we deliver is with this slide. So this kind of looks at it from the point of view of conversions, reporting and analytics, interface development, quality assurance, and of course our product, the 4Audit tool, and some of the areas where we actually can support you and have successfully supported our other clients, as well as, if you look in the lower part of the slide, our ongoing 24/7 support that we just talked about from an application and database perspective. And you can see some of the areas where we have successfully supported our client base. Now let's talk about who our clients are. This slide may look familiar to a lot of you because I think there's some overlap in who we service and who we have serviced over the years. And we're going to dig into this a little bit more, but that just gives you some idea of the types of clients that we have worked with and delivered a variety of services to for the last 10 years. So how is that services delivery distributed? So this slide really talks about, you know, where the work that we've done has come from, but it doesn't mean that we're limited to where the work is. So this outlines some of the big areas where we've been very successful, and also some of the areas where we intend to grow, which would include infrastructure and support, data management, and UX and UI development. So some of the technologies that we have used, we've outlined here on this slide, just to give you some idea. But as you can tell, we're pretty proficient across a variety of different platforms and technologies. And all of these things have resulted in successfully executed projects. And to dig deeper into it a little bit, let's talk about some of our specific offerings. So application and portal development is one. If you look at the names on the list as to some of the clientele that we've delivered it to, you'll see some familiar faces. And we're happy to give you any references as to what we've done with them and how we've done it, including white papers in some cases and case studies. Now, a new area that we've introduced recently is mobility. And as you all know, the world is certainly a mobile world, and we are in a position now, after having assembled a team of developers and project managers to really deliver successfully mobile applications development. And we've got, you know, some case studies that we can talk about there too. Certifications, always important. You guys all know what these are, and it's important for our clients to know that we are certified, and we're continuing to move forward in a variety of different other certifications. And that leads us to really some of the areas where we have been successful with clients, and I want to just dive deeper into some of our relationships and show you sort of the storyboard of how we've developed over the years. And I'm going to take Keenan Associates as my example. So as you can tell here from this slide, in 2006, we did an IVOS implementation with them. And from then on, we've been successful in increasing our presence and our performance with Keenan throughout the years. And this slide just outlines some significant milestones during the course of that relationship. I'm happy to announce that as of 2016, we are now the primary development vendor for Keenan Associates, and we are supporting all of their online applications. So this is an example of the kind of service delivery that you can expect from 4iSoft as we engage with the clients that you're selling to. So what have we accomplished in general? And this not only applies to Keenan, but just to our client base. And this is where we feel our real value comes in. We feel that, and I'm going to read these off a little bit more detail, but we feel that we have improved customer service across the board for our clients, as well as provided innovative solutions when there were problems or obstacles or challenges that they were facing from either a development or a maintenance or a support perspective. And because of our ability to do quick turnarounds, we are in a position to support them with our global delivery model, both with onshore and offshore and blended models that we can talk about more in future. All of this just really means one thing: better service delivery, better execution, more sales. And that's what it all comes down to for us, meaning our teams and your teams. So there are some case studies that I think are worthwhile for us to take a look at. I won't go through them in detail, but I'll give you the high level, and we can talk more about them later if you decide you need more information. And as I mentioned earlier, feel free to contact me directly or any of our leadership team, and we're happy to give you whatever information you need about 4iSoft. So RAS, we talked a little bit about it in the 4Audit demo. Basically, we were in a position to help them with a conversion, basically any kind of conversion, data migration, et cetera. And we did it so successfully that we were also able to ensure that they had zero downtime, and that we were 100% on time and on budget with our delivery. Now, there may have been people that you know, or maybe in the audience, that were familiar with this, because we did work with Ventiv on this directly. ICW Group, I won't read it off to you, but it's a similar story to RAS. This was not on an IVOS platform. This was actually on a competing platform, but we were successful in making their conversion happen, and it's a fully referenceable project. And then, of course, nationwide, with the 4Audit product that we talked about, we were very, I think in this case, I think what we need to understand is we built this product from scratch for VPI, which is their pet insurance division now. And it was so successful that they are now working to deploy it across other divisions within Nationwide, as Nationwide has acquired VPI as a wholly owned subsidiary. So this is a success story that I think is referenceable across the board for clients also, because it shows that not only can we develop, but we can develop custom solutions in the space, and those solutions can be deployed to, you know, very large global companies, or at least national companies. So all of this just sums up from our perspective to say some of the things that we think we bring to the table that maybe are takeaways for you as a sales organization. So IT services and development, obviously, you know, we've got the domain knowledge. Of course, we can scale. We've got the onshore, offshore model. And we just believe that given our track record and our ability to support clients in the space, that joining together with your ability to sell gives you more flexibility in how you approach the people that you're looking to close deals with. And of course, we are here to help in any way we can. That's why we're here. And I want to just thank you for your time and your participation. Thank you for listening, and feel free to contact me or any of the leadership team if you have any questions or comments. Obviously, if something comes up from a deal perspective, we'll be there to support you as much as we can or as much as necessary. Thank you very much, and I hope everyone is having a great day.
is to define someone as a skip auditee, which just says they've done really well, so you don't need to audit them for this period, and they'll basically get 100% on this audit. So those are just things that when you define your auditees, they're parameters that you can associate with the setup of the auditee. And each month you can go in, or each day, however frequently you're doing it, and redefine what criteria applies to the different people being audited. Once you've pulled your audit, you have the ability to preview what you've pulled. So it is a batch type process. And as I mentioned, it's a random sampling. So each auditee is assigned to a particular team. So here we have 3 auditees that are part of the Barr team, and then we have some that are part of the Stevenson team and so forth. And each team has a series of auditors. So depending on how large the organization is, some are small and there might only be, 1 or 2 people doing audits, others are larger. The system will go and determine how many auditors are involved in that team and divide the samples evenly within that team. So that's one of the things it does, is when it does that random sampling, it then divides it so that it's an even distribution to the auditors within that team. Once you've pulled a sample, you can also go and you can delete the audit. So if you decide you want to do a different time period, you can go in and say, you know what, I'm going to remove what I just pulled and I'm going to run another audit. And each time you go in to do an audit and you pick a date, you'll have that pull number and the system will automatically increment that for the next one. So you can have multiple pulls within the month, but at the end of the month, all the statistics for that month are accumulated. So once I've pulled my sample, then I go into the audit screen, and that's where the auditors do their work. And as I mentioned, they're divided in teams, and so based on your login, and I've kind of got a whole bunch of permission, so I see a lot of data, but normally an auditor is going to be part of a team, and only the members of that particular team will be listed in that drop-down. So the samples will be assigned to that particular auditor, and they have a list of them, and depending on how big your data sampling is, it can be a large list, so this is a pretty large list. But they can also transfer the audits between them. So you could be a primary auditor and get your list of things you need to audit, and then you can have someone be like a backup auditor that actually helps work the audits. And so they're not getting their own distribution of audits, but they're assisting the auditor. So when you come into the audit, there is the capability, and I have a huge list here, that you can actually grab certain ones that you want and transfer them to another auditor. While I'm down here, another option that you have is if you don't like the audit sample that was pulled, you can request an alternate sample. You can request based on a particular claim number, and then you provide the reason why you want that particular claim. So there's really 2 options where you just say, give me a random alternate, or if you want to actually look at a specific claim, you can put that claim number in and say, I'm requesting this claim. Some of the other capabilities is there's a search feature at the front, so you can look for either based on an auditor, based on the auditee name. As you work the audits, the list kind of goes down, but you can say, I want to see all of them that are in this batch, and it will show you the ones that have already been completed. So normally you would, let's say, turn this on so the auditor just keeps working down his list of audits. I had mentioned the priority status, so if you notice, those are sorted on top, so anybody that was a priority auditee, those audits would be done first, and then you would move into the next set of audits. When you go to audit, you basically pick up the row you want to audit, and you come into the auditing screen. Now, this part is totally flexible, and it's part of this administration function on how you define what your audit form looks like, the types of questionnaire you might use. There's different terminology for it. So this was loaded up with an example. This is a workers' comp setup where they want to audit benefit notices, the indemnity reserving, the forms that were sent. The number of function groups or categories of what you want to audit is basically unlimited. You can have as much as you'd like. And then within each of those, you can have more detailed area of what you're actually looking at. And each of the things that you are auditing is given a point value. So the whole thing is based on points. And when you first go through the requirements and decide how you're going to define the system, you sort of weigh what are the things that are most important to your operation. And so they're given a higher point value so that if there's a mistake in that area, the points earned are going to be less. So let me show you what that looks like. So if I go into the edit, that's where you actually do the audit. So there are things that are the mandatory pieces, and it comes in by default of the ones that you would, let's say, decide you're going to audit. You don't have to on every file audit everything, but by default it says these are the standard things that I'm auditing. And then you have another set which you call are optional, and then you could select those one by one if you want to do the optional ones. So the way it works is if, let's say, I'm evaluating this claim acceptance letter on the benefit notice, it has 2 points available, and I'm going to go and say, I look at the file and I say this acceptance letter was not sent within 14 days. So there's an error on this file. So it kind of works in terms of normally like you might ask a question on a questionnaire. You get the points if they do it correctly, and then if there's a mistake, it lets you select the error, and there could be one or more errors associated with a particular function. But since I said, okay, yes, they did not send it within 14 days, my 2 points available, this was weighted as 2, I'm actually going to earn 0 points for it. If I come into an optional one and I say, okay, yes, I want to give them or look at what they've done in terms of the indemnity medical management, then it added a point, because the optional ones will add a point, meaning they've done something and you're going to give them credit for it. However, if they made an error in that thing that you're looking at, then when you select that there is an error, then that point value goes back to 0. So here I could say, yes, this one's good, and I will get the 1 extra point. So at the bottom, you get the tally of the points available and the points they earned. So it's all related to rating the work that they've done. Couple other features is you can, flag kudos if they did a great job, so that goes on a special report so that you can identify those that are really doing, exceptional work besides just looking at their score. You have a free-form comments area, and I'll show you examples of comments that have been added where you can notate things on the file. You can determine, do they overpay, underpay? And again, this is really based on a manual view of the file. So the primary thing the system is doing is pulling that random sample for you. Then you go off and you audit the file, and then you record the results of that audit on the screen, picking the areas that you were looking at in the audit, and then determining what their percent accuracy is. Another feature is the QA team review required. So by default, it says it's not. So depending on the size of your audit group, some have it where there's just the one main auditor for each team that they're doing, and others have this feature where if you're not sure, you can have the team review, meaning the other auditors can look at the area that you have a question of on the particular item that you're auditing. So anything that's flagged for team review will sort of be held up until someone in the QA team has reviewed it and said, yeah, I agree with your assessment of this particular item that I'm auditing. And then once you're done, you say audit complete and you save it. And then you would return back to your audit list and you would move on to the next audit. So here, QA not needed. So the sum of all this, once it's finished, all the auditors work down the list, and then once it's all done, the system actually publishes the audit results. So it will know when the last of the items have been audited for the audit period, and then you get the published audit results. So those are available to the auditee. So let's say they're the examiner. They can see how they're doing, as well as the examiner, supervisor, manager, and so forth. So as part of the administration, you set up the hierarchy of the auditee belongs to a particular team, that team has a particular manager, and so forth. And so whoever has the proper access authority can see the audit results for an individual. So I'm coming in as an auditor, so I can actually see all my auditees. But if I was an auditee, or let's say an examiner, I'm only going to see my own things. I can't see other people's results. So basically, the audit results are showing by year and month what's been accumulated, how many claims were processed or brought in for auditing, and then as the sample, and only a percentage of the sample is actually audited. So it shows you the percentage that was audited. And then it accumulates the errors, and anytime you have an error, that reduces the points received. So you see the total points available against what the points received are, which then results in an accuracy score. So you sort of have the overall visibility of how well that person's doing or has done. This confirmation column, that's related to monitoring whether the auditee has actually looked at the audit results, because it's supposed to be like a training tool, right? You're auditing them and you want to give them feedback so that they know what to do so they don't make the same mistakes in the future. So when the actual auditee comes in, they'll mark that, they'll have a checkbox that they've looked at their audit results, and so then it is confirmed. And then there's reports that you can see, you know, where the people haven't come in and looked at their audit results. So if you want a little more granularity on what actually occurred in that time period, you have the view capability. So for any of the year months displayed, you can actually see all the audits that were done for that particular person. So it shows, you know, the claim information, and then you can see, you know, what are the errors. So the rate change notice was not sent within the 14 days, or here they have, say, an error, the denial was not sent within 14 days. So these errors are things that the client would define as to what's meaningful to them to evaluate in their organization. You can also add comments, so that's anything that the auditor wants the auditee to see. You also have the ability to see what was audited. So you see the different areas and what the point distribution was. So here, this one did not get the authorization letter sent in a timely fashion. When the auditee looks at all of this, they can decide that they want to appeal it. So there is this column for the appeal, and so I have one in this history that I will show you. And basically, it's a two-step appeal. And again, I'm looking backwards in time, that data that's already been audited, appealed, and closed out for the month. But the auditee can send a notice to the auditor, and then the auditor will go in, it'll go into the queue for the appeal, which actually, let me show you that in a minute. And the auditor will make a response, and then the auditee has an option to then look at it or have them look at it again. So you get two tries on the appeal. So let me show you the appeal screen really quickly. It's basically the same functionality as the audit. You still have the auditee, policy, claim, so forth. And you would have then the auditor that completed the original audit would be listed, and then there would be a new auditor that would do the appeal. And then if there's a second appeal, a third auditor would be involved. So I'll show you that on the report, but you can keep track of how many appeals there are. Your organization might not have anything where you want to have that much of a back and forth between the two, but the capability is there if there is any kind of workflow that makes sense for the appeals process. And same thing like a regular audit, you can request alternates, and you can also request specific claims to look at it. And the closing of the batch actually occurs in the appeal screen because the workflow is such that, you pull your sampling, then you go and you audit everything. Once all the priority audits are done, they're distributed to the people to look at. All the regular audits, once they're all finished, then there's a list of, here's our pending appeals, and once the appeals are all completed, then you actually close out the batch. And that's where, when you close the batch, you get that year-month result summary. So this is not displayed, this information from all the reports until you actually close out the batch for that year-month. So looking at the reports, there are a whole series of them. And I've kind of opened up a bunch of them just so we can kind of look at them. And I've done this to show you some of the different configurations that are available. But you can define multiple positions, not just, so this is like different data showing you different positions. It can be that you just have, examiner and assistant, or you might have different levels of positions. And you can get your statistics for all of those positions. You can also break out locations and get statistics by location. You see, numbers of what was audited each month, again, slicing and dicing different ways. And it's a SQL Server database, so besides the standard reports, you can also pull reports with anybody that knows SQL Server or any of the standard reporting tools. One of the breakdowns, besides just the position, is you can define based on experience as well. So it has built into it. Not every organization has that much in regards to defining experience levels. They might actually have it in their position if it's a specialist 1, 2, examiner, lead, whatever it might be. But it does have the capability that within a given position, you could have different experience levels. So the people that are more experienced, a level 3, would actually be weighted more difficultly, have a harder standard applied to themselves because they have more experience, they should make less mistakes. So it's also geared up to kind of assist with training new people and taking them to more of an experienced level. The product group, you can define, it can be any line of insurance, so it doesn't have to be just workers' comp, it could be any GL, it could also be different departments, as I mentioned earlier, underwriting, depending on what you want. So however you define your product groups, you can get averages to see how things are doing in a comparison of the different lines of insurance or the examiners across different lines, or it can be restricted to one line of insurance like workers' comp. You can get statistics based on however you break out the function that you want to evaluate. So you see how many errors, what's the top one, a lot of different ways to kind of review the data once you've done the audits. Obviously, looking at the errors tells you what part of your organization needs to have some, let's say, additional training, or you need to work on what the examiners are doing. There's quite a few graphical reports, and on all of them you can select, there's drop downs so you can control the periods that you're looking at. Some of them have people's names, so if you want to zero in on a particular auditor, you can look at that. Here's another graphical one based on position. Here's one where the list is just filtered based on who you want to look at. So you could either select all and pull the report for everybody, or you can zero on a certain person and kind of compare them to another person and see how they're doing, so you can evaluate different workflows if they make a difference. Here's one where it's just one auditee or examiner is reviewed and gives you the results based on the samples and then the percentage of accuracy. You can look at overpayments, underpayments, dollar errors, again, depending on what you define as important. processed, audited, number of errors, again, more statistics. You can break it down by person and month and year, and again, specific errors to zero in on that. Looking at particular teams, so you can compare like how one supervisor's group might be doing compared to another supervisor's group. And then this appeals summary is kind of a good one because it actually helps rate the auditors in a sense, because if you're getting a lot of appeals, that means the person being audited is not agreeing with them, and so you can actually see, well, did that auditor do it correctly, and then how often was it overturned that if a different auditor looked at the condition, they found out that the first auditor maybe didn't do it correctly. So this gives you some visibility on the people doing the audit, not just the person being audited. And then a more detailed report on the number of appeals. So it kind of keeps track of everything throughout the life cycle of the audit process. And then, of course, averages, see how everybody's doing. And as you're working through the audit, depending on, are you doing it weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, you can actually look at how the auditors are doing. So this gives you statistics on whether you're ready or getting ready to kind of close your batch. So that's showing you some of the configuration, some of the reporting capabilities, and in the last piece is in loading up the environment for a particular client. These are some of the tables that sort of help drive what you've been seeing through this. So for example, teams, you define the team and who the manager is. So it's very simple. It can be one team, a bunch of teams, a med-only team, an indemnity team. Really is driven by how you want to evaluate the organization. Positions can be comprehensive, or it can be as simple as, 2 levels. So again, this can be applicable to a very small operation, or it can be applicable to a very large operation. Product group.
So Nora, before we go into
simple as 2. I'm sorry, question?
Yeah, I was saying before we go into the configuration, let's just ask, on the application, how we are doing, any feedback, any questions? Kerry, team, one.
Yeah, this is Stanley. I'm in the account management side at Ventiv. So first of all, I appreciate the demonstration. It's a very nice audit tool. I'm curious though, so the example you've run through is audit of claim data, and I'm presuming that you don't also have a claim management solution. So the question is, how do the auditors interact with the actual claim data that they're auditing? Are they going between 2 different systems, so that the system that the claims are managed in, and then you're doing the audit in a separate system? Is it a little background on how that works?
Yeah, it's systems, and that's where the data sampling would be the part that's hooked into the claim system. So it would do the random sampling, pulling a list of claims. So primarily this is sort of to manage the list of claims that are being audited, or the examiners that are being audited, and to show them the results and the feedback. So in all of the things, let's say I'm looking at, let me go in here. The things that you want to look at, like if you can audit any position, but if you wanted to, for the examiner, look at how they're doing on the 3-point contact, the file setup, the claimant contact, these are all the things that tell the auditor what you need to go look at. And so they do pull the file. So they might have, let's say, IVOS open and be looking at what the examiner did, and then decide, did they do it correctly or not? So this sort of adds on, or it kind of pulls the claim data to get a list of claims and to give them the things to look at and to maintain the statistics of the audit results. So it's a little bit different than like a type of audit tool where it's actually looking at financials and comparing a lot of like financials and actual claim data per se.
Yeah. So that's right. So the only thing which this system has is the pointers to the claim, but the real claim data and everything is still in claim system. In this example, like if we were working with IVOS, and the user will have access to IVOS as well as the system, and they have to see everything on the, whenever, Nora said file, basically they're going to the claim system and looking at the, whatever happened on that claim. So does that answer your question, or please?
Yes, thank you.
I have a couple of questions. First, what is the typical sales cycle that you see for this tool once you have the first request to a signed contract?
So this one actually, it is pretty new in that respect. Like we've not taken it to the market that much to tell you the answer, but I think because it's I think it should be much smaller than a claim system. So it should be like in the range of couple of months to 3 months, that kind of cycle.
And for the, you have implemented clients on this previously though?
Yes, we have actually just one client on it nationwide. Yeah, they're working on the system, and we're supporting that system. But other than that, there are 2 or 3 other clients we are working on, but because of the change in everything, so it kind of has delayed certain things.
And how long was the implementation for that one client?
Yeah, so that implementation took a little longer because we were developing also for them. But implementation here is pretty small. I mean the 2 clients we are talking to right now, they need. We saw their existing system, manual way, the way they are doing right now, and it's very similar to the system. So we are thinking if we get a go ahead, it will not be more than, I would say, month or 2 months to implement it. Nora, you can tell me if you think differently.
Yeah, no, I think that's correct, because really the implementation for this is kind of loading in their questions into the tables. So the 2 that Bridget mentioned, the way they do their audits actually match the way the system is working.
Yeah, and the month to 2 months, what I'm saying is basically, just making sure that, that we understand their thing, and, these master tables are loaded, but the real work would be much less.
Okay. And you're showing this in Internet Explorer. Does it work in other browsers or limited to Internet Explorer?
It does work on the other browsers. We have not tested them very thoroughly, I would say, but we have not got any complaints on other browsers too.
Okay.
Hi, folks. This is Stephen Thomas. I have a few questions as well, too. First of all, yeah, it's a great tool. I can definitely see a lot of clients being interested in it. Couple of specifics. For it to do the data sampling, it looks like it's just looking at claim numbers, maybe claims that were open during that period of time. For clients that self-host, is this a tool that is hosted by 4iSoft, or is something they can host themselves?
So this tool right now, the way it is for the clients to be self-hosted, and that's how it is working at Nationwide also. But we have already, made a tool which would work in the SaaS mode, and we have an implementation which is on Microsoft Cloud at this point. Only thing is we don't have a client on it, or so it's still in alpha phase for the
okay.
cloud.
Great. And if they didn't want to share the actual IVOS database for, I don't know, security reasons, because our clients can be crazy like that sometimes, could we load like a claim numbers and claim status in a table in the SQL Server database as opposed to them linking to the IVOS database?
Yeah, so the way we have actually, we have just made a design in I would say on a paper. We have not even implemented it that way. But what we think when we integrate to IVOS or with IVOS, it would be done very similar to what you're saying. It would be actually integrated through IVOS Reporter at this point. So it will be nothing, directly, because we can integrate through web services directly going in, or we could just, like integrate this. So that's how we have right now envisioned that, there will be a report coming out of it, throwing a file, and then you would be reading that file. So yeah, there will be no direct integration.
Okay. Now, what we saw were all audits for claims adjusters, or the question sets really auditing claims adjusters. Some of our clients want to be able to audit vendors so that they want to check to see, how a vendor is doing for the services that they're providing. Is there an ability to do that type of audit?
Yeah, I think so, and that is what now that's why we stopped a little bit, because this is the kind of question which will lead us into this administration piece, because this is where like I think Nora can show you that this tool can be actually used for auditing anything, any work which is being performed within teams. So that can be categorized as, because what a team does, they're doing some function and they have different positions, right? And based on the function, they can either perform an error or do it correctly, right? So that's how this whole thing is designed. So there is nothing very specific to claims. The only thing is, because we are from the claims background, we put everything claims. It's very similar to the risk console application which you have. This can take anything in that way. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
There's like a hierarchy, and so you're really defining what do you want in function group, function, product group, product. You can define it however you'd like. So when I showed the reports, that was one configuration that actually had a higher breakdown, and then for demo purposes, we just kind of made it sort of flattened out and just said examiner 1, examiner 2 type of thing.
Yeah.
And then just this one's kind of a simple question. Looking at the list, there are some things like, was a denial letter sent? Well, if the claim wasn't denied, then that question wouldn't be applicable. If it's a required question, but it still doesn't apply to this particular claim, do you just delete out the questions so that the number of potential points is actually lower?
Yeah, so that was like when I brought it in by default, it brought in all of them, but you can uncheck certain ones that don't apply.
Okay, great. All right. That was it for me so far.
And you can also, where you have ones that are standard and ones that are optional, that's another way to look at it. Like in this one, they just said, okay, partial credit will be optional, but you could also have everything be an optional one and you check the ones you want, or you can make everything by default and uncheck things. So there's a lot of different ways to do it depending on how you're doing your auditing. So it has that flexibility. And that's really like the implementation process, going through those requirements.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I could not get your name.
Stephen Thomas?
Okay. Okay, we'll be meeting. Okay.
Hey guys, this is Pete Govak. Just a quick question, and this might be a question for actually our team, Bridge, along with your team and Nora as well. Your client you talk about is nationwide, and I've seen in the carrier space a more defined commitment to an audit process as part of a quality control commitment that an organization has. Do you, again, at 4iSoft or our folks, including Stephen and some of the account managers, do you have a sense on the criteria or the I guess the overview of an organization that would be most likely interested in an audit tool? And what I mean by that is, an organization that's processing 500 to 1,000 claims a year isn't typically going to do an audit. It's got to be a larger organization, or maybe it's more carrier focused, or maybe it's more public entity focused. Does anyone have any sense on where an audit tool may play more prominently versus other types of organizations?
I can get this started. I mean, I think I will like to hear a lot of inputs on this same thing because we have discussed this, and I know you guys are much closer to the market, this market than we are. But whatever I have found is you're right. This will be not for very small organization. This tool will be for mid to larger organization where you have teams of 30 to 50 examiners, things like that. People working on claims that way. Like CPAs would be also very good candidate for this. We have talked to the two potential prospects who we are seriously working with or were working with on this, and they both like the tool very much. Right now they have some kind of system, but they're not very happy with it. One of them is doing it manually, and they spend a lot of time doing it, and that's Keenan, a TPA. Whereas there is another carrier, who is using another system, is not at all happy, wants to change it. So, I mean, that's what our research is. You're right. Middle to larger organization, TPAs or carriers, teams, 30 or 50 examiners or more. Anyone else? Any input?
Yeah, Pete, I think what you had said earlier, that I've found that it's kind of relative to size, that the bigger the client, the more examiners that they have, the more that they can't micromanage at a claim level. They have to get a level higher than that, and that's where the audit tools become really important.
Yeah, certainly TPAs sounds logical, right? I mean, it's their core business, so seems pretty straightforward from their perspective. That makes sense.
And I think they can use that, even for marketing material, that they're auditing their own adjusters and their average scores are above 98%, things like that, during the sales process, and it really shows that they're kind of on top of things.
Yeah. We have a common client, Risk Candidate Administrative Services, RAS, and they have IVOS as a product, and we were a little bit late reaching out to them. They were actually in the process of implementing another audit product, but we did talk to them and got some inputs from them, and they are very happy with the this whole process. And they used to have something else, they changed it, and they said, I mean, from their perspective, they have to have an audit system, and they really gain a lot of efficiency. They were saying even on the claim leakage, they really use the product a lot.
Have you thought about additionally potentially doing other automated tasks so that if new users got added to the claim system, they could automatically get added to the audit, so there's not duplicate entry, things of that like?
I mean, so basically what you're saying is so there has to be some kind of integration which you're talking about, or how would that work?
Well, I guess the question is, would the application allow for to do the setup right now with like the auditees and the teams and the managers? All of that is done through the online application. If it was possible, could we send extracts of data so that some of that reference data could also be updated?
I'm sure it can be done, and as soon as we have some implementation, we'll have to go in that route. That's a very good. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think we'll have to go that route for the initial load. Yeah, and it's a very straightforward database, so we should be able to do it. We have not developed those scripts yet.
Great, thanks.
Hello.
Yeah,
Yeah, any other discussions or questions?
Is Carrie there? Carrie has been very quiet.
I know, I'm quiet as a mouse.
Okay.
It's very rare. Everyone should be enjoying this a lot.
I feel like I'm hogging to ask all the questions, but I'm assuming the point scaling that you do, where it's 2 points, 1 point, 0 points, that's also customizable. If someone wanted to go through like a 1 through 5 scale, that's possible as well.
Yes, so that's where you do weight it, and okay. There's the table where you give it the point value. So it's all table driven, and if you have any errors, then that's when it deducts the point. So that's where any one error will pull the points down. I think these are all, we just kind of loaded these as 2, but if I go in and edit it, you can actually, change the point value. So if something's really important, then a particular error would like pull all the points down.
Sure.
So you can make this whatever you want. And that's how you get the weighting and the significance, to make it like a fair assessment, instead of just making everything like, here's an error, you have 5 errors. Some errors are a lot more significant than others.
Nick, can you have like multiple audit types running at the same time? I'll give you a real life example. Would be we have one set of questions that would be asked if it was a medical only claim, and another set of questions that would be asked if it was an indemnity claim. Potentially a different set of questions that would be asked if it was a light duty return to work type of situation.
Yes, and it is, I'm trying to think if it's in this functions one. Yeah, so here, that's exactly what it's doing. So these like WCIN are all indemnity questions and the different functions within an indemnity claim. But then there's also a group of med-only questions. So they're a different set. So this was actually designed with, or not designed, but this configuration was loaded up with 2, one group of questions for med only and one group of questions for indemnity. And the codes don't really show, but when you set up your tables, it's totally flexible, and you can put significance in the definition of the code just to know, okay, this is workers' comp, you might have GL, it might be a different line of coverage under the GL. So it pretty much is unlimited on how you want to do it and the different sets of questions that you do.
Great.
So can we sell this? That's the question now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can always sell stuff.
Yes, whether we can or we can't doesn't matter. The answer is yes, of course. Actually, and Stephen, I am glad that you're asking all of these questions. So what I'd like to do is, I know that we're going to do an overview of 4iSoft, right, Daryl? Just in general on who you are, what you do.
That's correct. Yep.
After we work through that, then we have a pretty solid team on the phone. I know that Pete and I have spoken with you a couple of times, have worked some with Katie as well as with Jim, and happy that Stephen and the account management team and the rest of the BDMs were also able to join. So what we're thinking is we want to roll this out as a follow-up webinar to our iVOS product webinar that we did in the beginning of the month. And we want to roll that out before RMIS. And it's really focused on the iVOS clients initially. And it's just additional capabilities that are being delivered. And then Stephen probably will look to you to really talk about tighter integration points and some of the messaging around how we can leverage this with our claims clients. And then, Dan, you had some pretty good feedback. I think that this could even be an option maybe for the risk side as well. And then again, it could also be just a very standalone tool that we can do some introductions, whether it's at RMIS or different conferences, or even in follow-up with different webinars to just clients. And 4iSoft can work with them directly on some of these things too. So that's what's going through my head right now. I am open to any feedback though.
Oh, sounds good.
Oh, That sounds very good, Carrie. So
thank you for your time and attendance.